My project is on the super subtle sociological topics in Suburbia Overture by Will Wood. The Suburbia Overture is a part of the Normal album, which was first released in 2020 and then re-released again in 2024 under the name The New Normal. This album is about being normal, so no shock there. It covers many topics all through the lens of what is socially acceptable or normal. Some of the topics that it covers in not just this song, but many of the songs in the album, are gender identity, love, mental health, and again, all through a hegemonic or normal view. At the bottom, I have a quote from the textbook that says, "Social consensus was one part reality and equal parts of illusion and coercion." I feel like this really encapsulates what the song is about. The song is about a man who is trying to live in society in a way that everyone else deems acceptable, but he is really struggling, and it doesn't end up going that way. I chose Parsons because one of the first things in the readings about Parsons was the nuclear family, the middle class dream, the consumerism they subscribed to. This is very reminiscent of the Suburbia Overture. Parsons saw human action as voluntary. That is something that the main character takes to heart in this song. He starts a journey with voluntary action. He lives in the suburb. He lives in a perfect middle class family. He's got a wife. He's got kids, all the blah blah blah. He's got all that. But then he starts to break down and he starts going into deviance. Parsons' picture of functional unity was more a social myth than a reflection of American social reality. I thought this worked well with the song because in the song it is kind of an illusion that they're living. They're living in an illusion where everything's perfect. It's the suburb and they have nice cars and it's lovely. But then it starts taking a turn and it's not so lovely anymore, and it's more of a reflection of the real American society, I'd say. I feel like a quote from the song that really relates to Parsons' picture of fundamental blah 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 would be "Giveth and taketh away till things come out a certain way," meaning, the Lord, he takes things, he gives. You know what? We're cutting that. I feel like both of these quotes give the impression that if the creator feels like it's not a good enough thing, they can change it at any time they want. Parsons can change his functional unity theory, and God in the song, he can change things until he likes it, until it's the way he wants. 4. Subsystems of action. The first of the 4 subsystems of action would be the social system. One of the main takeaways I had from this system would be actors' tendency to optimize their gratification. One of the ways people optimize their gratification would be through behaviors. In the slides and in class, we talked about behaviors on a first date, norms of interaction on Discord servers, all that jazz. Something that I felt encapsulated this within the song would be chameleon peacocks are the talk of the town. Basically saying chameleons and peacocks, chameleons, who disguise themselves, and peacocks who are flashy and present themselves in a way that is beautiful to others to gain their interest. And then another would be, well, Lot he had his lot in life, and Job he had his job, and I guess you'll too and die. Basically meaning Lot he had his lot. Lot from the Bible. Why? The other quote from the lyrics would be, well, Lot he had his lot in life, Job his job, and I guess you'll too and die. Meaning, Lot he had his lot, Job he had his job. You'll also have your lot and your job in life, and then you'll die. Which basically sums up to the norms and behaviors while you're at work, and being within society, the norms that people subscribe to in society, like how they're behaving at their jobs and how they're behaving in class or on the train or anywhere. That can basically be how anyone acts. That is the social norm. That's how people are supposed to act. So in this lyric, it's just saying, you're going to subscribe to these social norms. You're going to do that, and you're going to continue doing that until you die. The second of the 4 subsystems would be the cultural system. The culture system focuses on cultural traditions that are shared systems of symbols, and in this one it specifies religion, which is good, because there's a lot of religion in this song. We got good morning, white picket fences, trick or treat, Merry Christmas, howdy neighbor, thank you, Jesus. Merry Christmas and thank you, Jesus. They're both, references to God. And then before, in the last slide, we had Lot, he had his lot in life, Job, he had his job, which, again, Christian symbolism. Again, we have the Lord looked down and said, hey, you're only mortal, which basically wraps up the song. Surprisingly, the slides had more information than the textbook on this one. The slide said that symbolic aspects of action learned through socialization, ideals, values, norms, hegemonic masculinity, heteronormativity, neoliberalism, and surveillance capitalism, those were all aspects of the cultural system. One lyric that I should have added is later. It says, everybody's all up in my, everybody's all up in my, everybody's all up in my business, which I feel relates to surveillance capitalism and how we are so observed in today's society, and it's impossible to escape it, and you're just constantly under the eye of people watching you. But instead of that, I went with Culture's Not Your Friend, which begins to show the psychotic break where he's just kind of thinking, oh man, like this is terrible, society, we live in it, and it's a trap, and I hate this, and I don't want to be in this, and the norms and the values, and they're not lining up, and he just doesn't feel correct, and it's beginning to show. The third of the 4 subsystems of action would be the personality system. In the textbook is said to be the personality of the actor, including their needs, their motive, and their attitudes. The needs, motives, and attitude of our main character at this point could be summed up in a few lyrics. Your ear to the playground, your eye on the ball, your head in the gutter, your brain on the wall. There's a common saying, your ear to the ground, which basically means to just be like super zoned in on like what's happening around you. It's, paying attention. And that changes to ear to the playground, which I interpret meaning that they are high self-monitoring. They're really monitoring everything that people are saying about them. They're really monitoring what's happening around them, what people could be interpreting about them. And they're really self-conscious about that, and it relates again back to everybody's in my business, which is again the surveillance and the high or low self-monitoring, which in this case it's the high self-monitoring. And then you get your eye on the ball, which is to really focus. But I think it is his perception on how people are perceiving him. You got your ear to the playground, eye on the ball, head in the gutter, which usually means that you're dirty-minded. You want to get your head out of that gutter. This guy, he's got his head right in that gutter, and you will see more evidence of that later. He's got his head in the gutter and brains on the wall, which is a reference to him committing suicide, which is again relating back to the religious aspect of this song, which is highly frowned upon in religion and just in society in general. And you got Myers-Briggs, OK Ultra. Myers-Briggs is a personality test, which is clearly showing that his psychotic break is going further and further and further. And the OK Ultra relates to MK Ultra, which is something the CIA did during the Cold War, where they took people from Canada and America and they just started torturing them. They started torturing them, they pumped them full of LSD and pumped them full of mushrooms, which made them psychotic. And it's really beginning to add up that this character might have been part of that. He might be having a psychotic break, and he's just like, he cannot handle being part of society right now. He cannot handle being part of society, and he needs to break out of these social norms. The fourth and final of the 4 subsystems of action would be the behavioral system. In the textbook, it is defined as our body and its physical environment, which Parsons saw as a biological system. And in the slides, we talked about embodied and somatic, ontology and reality, neurophysiology, able body or disabled. And connecting with this, we have, I'd say, some disabled stuff, because mental disability is still a disability, and this character is mentally disabled. Feed on white wine and Pfizer, which means he's being medicated, and he's also self-medicating with alcohol. Along with that, we have live, laugh, love, please pass the pills, which is, again, self-medication, or just medication, who knows. And then home is where the heart is. You ain't homeless, but you're heartless, which is relating back to his physical environment, and talking about how he does have a home. He isn't homeless, but your home is where your heart is. But he does not have a heart anymore because he's just absolutely trying to break free. He's trying to break free from the society, and he cannot get out. And he's just trying to dig, and he's digging, and he's digging. And the dog bites postman while the basement eyes dream of a night in the drive-in with an AR-15. He's basically fantasizing about killing people now. He's in the basement, and he's just like, he's hearing that, oh my god, I need to kill people. Which is all relating, again, to the physical environment and to the disability that this main character is clearly facing. AGIL model. The first letter of the AGIL model stands for adaptation. Adaptation. In the textbook, a system must adapt to its external environment and make that environment what it needs. In this having what it needs, we have breed out our incisors, which is basically just society changing to what we want it to be. It is adapting. In the slide, via the economy, there's a lot of economic stuff in this one. We have camouflage billboards for Leadline Brook Brothers, which is still a soup company today, which is, again, holding up social norms. When you get to that point where you are so high and mighty in society that you have all this money, then you want to look the part. So the Brook Brothers, they got the soup for you on the market, but you still got to watch where you park it, which is talking about like cars and stuff, and it's also talking about how this neighborhood is there, So you're paying for the safety, which is adaptation of the economy. You're paying for it, but buy now or die, which is one of my favorite lyrics in this song. Buy now or die. It's so like die, I love that, and it's very like capitalism, capitalism, rah, rah, I love that. One of the other lyrics in this for this little part of it would be, you learn to torture house cats like vultures. You cocked and sucked your lack of empathy. Pulled the trigger on your foot to prove you've got. That, I would say, is an external endeavor. External environment. External environment meaning, basically in that line, it's meaning your external environment, you are taking that and you are making it into something that you can live in. So this main character, he wants to kill things. He wants to kill those cats. He is making an environment where he can do that and not be judged by the social norms. So he is doing it in his basement, along when he was talking about the AR-15s, probably doing that with the cats. One of the main things that I took away from Goal Set is that it's through norms and values and like political systems, and it takes a village to fake a whole culture, taking its norms and values. It takes a whole village to fake that. And I can tell where paradise is, that is a goal, that is a thing that they are trying to achieve. They're trying to achieve paradise, which is the suburbia, which our main character is in. He's trying to break out. What is he building in that painted lady? Painted lady being a woman of the 50s who's all painted and dressed up. Building being she's having a child, and our participation trophy wife, a little baby girl who's already being sexualized, or a blonde blue-eyed baby, a little baby boy who is also being sexualized, just much less. Fuck your culture. I ain't got no culture. It's just fully rejecting the goal. Just fully rejecting it. Honestly, that should be later in the latent. You don't make the rules, you just write them down. That is, again, the goal is the social norms. It's perpetuating, and the rules are just instilled in society. The norms are already set in stone. We can't change them, although we do try. If it isn't true that every snowflake matters in a blizzard, everybody knows that, nobody knows that. It's instantly talking about the coercion to make sure that everyone's integrated. Oh, we're on integration now. Social systems, they gotta make sure that everyone's in line. We gotta make sure people are in line, falling in line. They're integrated. This is the part where we really beat it into them, that they're like part of the society and they're doing those social norms. Chameleon peacocks are the talk of the town. We already talked about this one. They're blending in, they're integrating, and they are the chameleon in the thing, and they're doing so well that the whole town is talking about it. The difference between blazing trails and slash and burn. Here we're really blazing a trail, and some kids, they're slashing and burning. Like our main character here, he's slashing and burning. He's going crazy. Well, a lot he had his lot in life. Job is job, and I guess you'll too and die. This is a family, it's education, it's you're gonna be integrated into the society, and you're gonna have your lot, you're gonna have your job, and you'll die. A social system must be created, maintained, and renewed in dominant patterns of value in the system in question, and manage the system's internal tension. Basically saying, got a system, we gotta maintain it, we gotta keep it up, we gotta keep going, and going against the grain, catching splinters. Basically, when you're fixing it up, you're gonna catch a few splinters, and you're gonna fix it up, and that's the latent pattern maintenance. When you're fixing up a thing, when you're sanding a table, you're gonna get a few splinters, but overall, it's gonna be very smooth. Cultural corrections, values, and moral pruning, and these are done through religion. Again, the Lord looked down and said, hey, you're only human. Culture's not your friend. I caught crew from your sister and died laughing in jail. We have the police and the courts, and they're maintaining that latent pattern maintenance and tension management. They are maintaining things, they're maintaining society, and through latent things. They put them in jail. Leave you wondering when they might go back to normal. Leave you wondering why they can't have just been normal. Basically, like, oh, society, we could have just had a normal thing. Corrections, they don't correct everything. Leave you wondering when they might go back to normal. Leave you wondering why they can't have just been normal. Why can't I just be like the perfect social norms, the social values, blah, blah, blah. What did I do? What happened? Why is this? And that's really what our character's thinking here. It's like, why is this not happening? And the latent pattern maintenance, it didn't really catch him, which, why didn't it? Why can't it catch it and correct it? Why are we not corrected? Why is not everything correct? Parsons. That brings us to the end. One of the main issues that people have with this social theory is the lack of deviance that is addressed, which is addressed in this song. Here are all the lyrics that have deviance in them. I'd say it's about like 80% of lyrics. Like really, it just didn't address it. You know who does? Merton. Gotta love Merton. Always was like, oh, the deviance, let's correct it. And he corrected it so that you weren't wondering when they might go back to normal, and you weren't wondering why they can't have just been normal.